I was at the position of being jobless. So now I located a place to be able to go and learn how to braid. It was going to cost X amount of dollars, but I did not have any income.
Welcome to the Revolution of One podcast, where the revolution will not only be televised, but also individualized.
Today's guest is Melony Armstrong. Melony is the founder and CEO of Naturally Speaking, the first professional braiding salon in Mississippi, and the founder of Armstrong Braiding Academy and pastor of the King's Dome Worship Center. Today, we're going to talk about her entrepreneurial journey, the early hurdles she faced along the way, and how by being faithful to her dream, she was able to open the door for many people to follow theirs. Melony, thanks for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So Melony, you were on your way to what seemed at the time to be a routine hair appointment at a braiding salon.
Right.
Your husband drops you off, you have your appointment, he picks you up, you get back in the car, and you say to him, "This is what I want to do for a career."
Yes.
And that catches him completely out of left field. He has no idea what it is you're talking about. At this point, he thinks you might be losing your mind.
Right.
Tell me what's going on. What did you experience and observe in that salon that had such an impact on your career choice?
I had such a burst of energy, and I was feeling something that I had never, ever felt before. And it was just like a light bulb had came on, and the whole room just brightened up. And really, I would have to say prior to then, I had been searching for something. It was like, I know that there's something that I'm supposed to be doing with my life. I just don't know what it is. And at that moment, it was just like, I just knew this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be a professional. And I always use that word professional, a professional hair braider. And I knew that with every fiber in my being.
When you're sitting in the chair and you're getting your hair done, what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was painful.
Yeah.
It was a little uncomfortable. My chair was turned away from the mirror, so I wasn't able to see anything. I could tell that the braider was moving very swiftly. She was very accurate. She knew exactly what she was doing. I could tell that she had very high skills. And I was just very, anxious to see what this, hairstyle was going to look like after she was done. So I was anxious to see how it was all gonna come together.
And there was a moment you had in there where, because I think you said it, like you expected it to be much longer than it was, right? Yeah. And she was done in like 15 minutes.
50 minutes.
50 minutes.
Yes.
And you put the math together when you counted the number of clients in the salon, and that made you say, wait a minute, she's on to something I need to tap into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So exactly 50 minutes. She says, "I'm done." She turns my chair to the mirror. I look in the mirror and I'm thinking, wow, you did all of this in 50 minutes? And then I got to thinking, I'm not the only one here. There are at least 5 other people here. I don't know what they're getting, but if they're getting what I'm getting, and you do it in the exact amount of time that she did me, if she did them in the exact amount of time that she did my hair, and they paid $75, that was a pretty good income.
I hope whoever did your hair gets a chance to see this episode and hear about your story, because I think it's a great example of how just showing up and doing what you do best with integrity can have a profound impact on people's lives in ways that we can't even imagine. So many times we show up to work, maybe we don't feel like being there, maybe we don't have a lot of energy that day, and just by saying, I'm gonna treat this client, this person in front of me, as if it's my only business today, and I'm gonna do right by them, that can have an impact by making that person walk out of there saying, I know what I was born to do now.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So you get back in the car and you tell your husband this. He thinks you've lost your mind. Tell me about that conversation.
So, my mind is just racing, and it's just flooded with thoughts, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, and so finally I just expressed all of these thoughts that are going through my mind, and I say, I know what I want to do. I want to be a professional hair braider. And as they say, you could have heard a pin drop. And, I'm thinking, did you hear what I said? I said I want to be a professional hair braider. And I'm not getting any response whatsoever. But it didn't matter because I knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Now, to give a little context for why you heard the pin drop, at this time, you had a pretty respectable career, and there was nothing about what you were doing that would give anybody a reason to predict that. You were the assistant director at a boys' home.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about the work you were doing at that time.
So I was an assistant director at a boys' home, and we took in like boys that were disadvantaged, at risk, and some of my duties was get them registered for school. I did the intake. I took them to doctor visits. I even grocery shop for the home. I did everything except for cook and clean. But it was a pretty laid back job. I really enjoyed it. I felt it was meaningful. But it just wasn't, it just didn't give me that feeling of just complete satisfaction.
So when you have this moment, how do you take the leap from, I think I want to do this thing that I don't know anything about, to the position you're in now? Walk me through that journey.
So we were at the time at the boys' home, our funding was a little sketchy. We were facing losing one of our biggest donors. And so I went into work every day with that in mind. Like, this could be the last day. The doors could be, closed at any time. And so during this process, that's exactly what happened. Our biggest funding source pulled their funding, and from one day to the next, I didn't have a job anymore. So at this time, it made this whole professional braiding idea a lot easier to wrap my mind around.
Yeah. You had to learn some things,
Yes.
and in the process of trying to figure out how you're going to do this, you ran up against some hurdles that
Yes.
said, this is not going to be easy or inexpensive at all. What were those for you?
The first hurdle that I actually ran into was the first challenge was learning how to braid.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to braid. Once I learned how to braid, then from there, because I always wanted to be professional, I wanted to do this as a real bona fide business. So I began to look into what that was going to take. And I began to call local agencies, and then I began to call the state agencies. And that's when I found out that unless I had the credentials of a full cosmetologist, that I was not going to be able to pursue that as a business.
So you developed the skill first.
Yes.
And now you're ready to do this thing.
Yes.
And it's essentially illegal for you to do it unless you get a number of occupational licenses.
Yes.
And why was that a problem?
That was a problem. To me, that was a problem because one of my favorite words back then was it just didn't make sense. Why do I have to go to cosmetology school when I'm not going to learn anything about hair braiding? I'm not going to learn anything about what I was pursuing at the time. And it just didn't make sense. So I have to go to school and I have to learn chemical treatments and cutting and coloring and all of these other things that had nothing to do with hair braiding. And that just didn't make sense to me.
And if I'm not mistaken, you talk about this in the documentary a little bit, that some of these places where you could have gone to get your license, they didn't even teach the thing you were required to get a license for. They didn't teach hair braiding at all, right?
No.
So you'd be learning all these things you didn't need and not learning the thing that you already knew.
Yes.
Now, for someone who's listening to that and doesn't have background, they may say, well, isn't it good for people to have licenses, in order to practice a trade? But from your vantage point, you have the skill, you have the passion, you already have clients that are willing to work with you, you have the entrepreneurial mindset necessary to create wealth, and you're being artificially constrained. And I know this is something that happens to a lot of entrepreneurs. In this country, entrepreneurship has been the primary way that people make that leap from poverty to wealth. And I think it's significantly underestimated that a lot of people are blocked out of the entrepreneurial game because of criteria like this that really doesn't make you better. It just puts an artificial constraint there that you have to figure out a way to get around creatively.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you had to raise a lot of money in order to make this happen, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So in order to take the class, that was going to cost a couple of $1,000s. I was at the position of being jobless. So now I located a place to be able to go and learn how to braid. It was going to cost X amount of dollars, but I did not have any income. So I've always been the kind of person, so what I need to do is just sit down and just think hard enough, and I'll eventually figure it out. And I did that, and one of the ideas that I had was to put together a letter and hand it out to all of my church members, my families. I know they love me, and they love to see me go do this, and that's what I did initially.
So how did you get the word out?
So I got the word out. Again, I constructed the letter. I went to church and I said, hey, I want to go take this hair braiding class, and I'm soliciting your support. To my Caucasian church members, I was like, when I come back, I won't be able to braid your hair, but I really appreciate you supporting me. And to my African American church members, I said, when I come back, I'll braid your hair if you support me. And so I did. I got support from both sides. Just wasn't enough, though, but I did get support.
So you got support. They came through for you, but you still needed more.
Yes.
So what did you do? How did you fill that gap?
So I sat back down, put on my thinking cap, and said, okay, how are we going to do this? And I said, well, what do I have? What do we have in the house? And so we had a lot of items that we weren't using, and we kept saying we were going to have a garage sale, my husband and I. And so I kind of identified all of these items to put in a garage sale, and if I had successfully sold them all, I would have more than enough money to pay for the braiding class.
And did you sell them all?
No, I didn't even put a dent in it. Kind of procrastinated, and didn't have the garage sale until the day before I was supposed to go take the class in Atlanta.
Wow. So it's the day before.
It's the day before, but I'm hopeful.
You're hopeful. You have the garage sale.
Yes.
You don't sell anything, really.
No.
Are you still hopeful at that moment?
Hope was seeping away fast at that point. But what a funny little thing happened. A friend of my husband's wife found out that we were having a garage sale, and she called me up and she said, you know what, I have some things that I've been wanting to sell in a garage sale. Do you mind if I include my items with yours? And I said, absolutely not. And so I thought she was going to come over and just drop them off, but she volunteered to stay, and she ended up staying the whole day. During that time, we talked, and I found out some things about her. And one of the things I found out about her, she had just bought a brand new van, which she loved. She was just in love with this brand new van.
Okay, so she was in love with this brand new van. She tells you this in the conversation. Yes. And this turns out to be a big part of your story down the road.
It does.
Because even though she showed up to the garage sale and helped you out, and that was amazing, it still didn't increase your sales.
Yes.
So what happens with the van?
So what happens with the van is after the garage sale and we pack up, she packs up and she leaves, and I tell her thank you for coming over, and I go in the house and I get a phone call. I had just put our car, my husband and I had just put our vehicle in the shop because we needed some work done on it, even to make the trip to Atlanta.
Right.
Got a call from the mechanic that there was something else wrong with the car and that we were not going to be able to get it. So I go in the house, get that phone call, and now, hope is seeping away fast because I don't have the money that I need to have to pay for the class, nor do I have transportation to even take the trip. And at this point, I'm wondering, my faith is, because my faith was very high. It was a 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. It was a 10. By now, it's like a 3. And I'm thinking, I really felt like God, this is what he wanted me to do. I really felt like I was on the path to my purpose. And now, I've just come to almost like a screeching halt. And I'm wondering, I'm second guessing, did I, did I hear right? Was I on the right path in the first place? And so while I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about all of that, I get a phone call from my mom who lived in another state. And she's asking about how the garage sale went. And I said, well, Mom, it didn't go good. And she said, oh, it didn't. She said, well, the reason why I was calling because the strangest thing happened to me today. And I'm thinking, what is it, Mom? And she says, I was expecting a check, but it was supposed to come weeks later. And it came today. And not only did it came today, it came at 4:00. And the mailman never runs at 4:00 on a Saturday. How much more money do you need for your class? And I told her. And she says, I'm going to the Western Union right now, and I'm going to wire you the money that you need.
Wow.
Just like that.
Yeah. There's an old saying growing up in church, he may not come when you want him to, but he's right on time.
Right on time.
that was your version of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now my faith that had dwindled to a 3 was back up to about a 6.5. But I was thinking, but I don't have a car. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have transportation, and I have to have that. I have the money, but I have no way to get there, and it's not enough time to catch a Greyhound. So what am I going to do? So I sat down again, and I was just thinking, I'm thinking, and all of a sudden, the name of the woman who included her items in the garage sale came to my mind, and her name is Gladys. And I heard a little voice say, call Gladys and ask her if you can use her car. And I was thinking that's one of the craziest things I would have ever done. I don't even know this woman. I've just met her today. But I kept hearing the voice, and it was just getting louder and louder. My husband was in the living room at the time, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to go see what he thinks about this, and I'm sure he's going to think it's a crazy idea, and that way I'll just let it go. So I ran it by him, and his words were, Mel, if that's what you want to do, that's up to you. But he pretty much said, just leave me out of it. Like, I don't have anything to do with this. And so I thought to myself, okay, and I was walking back to my bedroom, and I sat down on the side of the bed, and I'm still having this crazy thought, call Gladys and ask her if you could use her car. And I found myself picking up the phone, dialing her number. She answers, and she says, hey. And I said, hey. And she says, you're getting ready to, be on your way to Atlanta. And I said, well, our car, it's in the shop, and they called and said it wasn't going to be ready. And before I could get another word out, she says, come and get my van, her brand new van that she was very in love with, that she had just gotten. And I didn't even know what to say. I thought, surely you didn't just say, come and get my van. And she did. And she said, come and get it right now. So now I have all of the money that I needed, and now I have transportation to get there. And my faith was back to a 10.
The journey of faith is like that sometimes,
Yes.
right? You start off with the excitement at a 10.
Yes.
You get knocked around a few times. You get bumped down to 3, 1, back up to 6, but you make it back up there.
Yes.
What I really love about your story is it's a great illustration of why it's so important to do whatever we can with whatever we have. Because when you told your garage story, it sounded to me like a failure. It sounded like a waste of time. Here was an idea you had, you're gonna raise some money, you did everything you could, and you get nothing.
Yes.
But if you hadn't done that garage sale, Gladys wouldn't have said, oh, I have some things to sell too. And then she comes over, talks to you all day, and it's the conversation she has with you that sets you up for success when you decide to call her later on. If you don't have that garage failure, you don't have that van success story.
Wow.
And so many of our success stories in life comes from those moments that seem like a waste of time when we're in them, but we choose to be faithful anyway to the little things that we can do to make a difference. And your story has so many of those kind of moments. It's one of the reasons why you really inspire me. I absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Now, something that I think doesn't get talked about a lot, but I'm most fascinated with it about your story is you're a pastor.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been a pastor for a long time.
Yes.
Your faith has played a big role
Yes.
in the way you approach business, the way you treat people. Tell me a little bit about the difference that your spirituality makes in your work.
My spirituality makes all the difference. I literally feel and I literally believe that without my faith in God, that there's nothing that I could do. The scripture that says that with you I can do all things, I really believe that. I don't believe that he's my source. He's my life.
Yeah.
Yes.
For people who say, when I listen to Melony's story, she had the epiphany. She had the moment where she just knew what she was born to do. And she had that conviction that this is what, God had called her to. I don't have anything like that. I don't really know why I'm here. I don't have any particular thing I'm passionate about. What insight would you offer to someone who's kind of stuck in that zone?
For someone that's kind of stuck in that zone, what I would say is, first of all, I would say I totally understand. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and I knew what I wanted to do. My pursuit of getting my hair braided at the hair salon came out of dissatisfaction with my own hair. I wasn't happy with my hair. I wasn't happy with my appearance. And that made me want to pursue getting happy with my hair and getting happy with my appearance. So when I saw a woman in the store one day who had her hair braided in a way that I felt like would look really good on me, instead of saying, instead of just not asking her where she got her hair braided, I had enough courage to go ask her where she got her hair braided. And she gave me that information. So for a person who doesn't know what they want to do, I would first say, take inventory of what's going on in your life. It's not always a strength that helps you to identify what you're supposed to be doing in life. It could come out of pain. It could come out of some type of struggle. Take inventory of what you are attracted to. What shows do you like to watch on television? What books do you like to read? What thoughts do you have that when you think them, they make you feel a certain way and you like the way that feels?
That's the most profound advice I've ever heard when it comes to finding your purpose, because there's so much emphasis on finding your passion, which for a lot of people feels like this really complex math equation that they have to solve. And what you're saying is investigate your curiosity.
Yes.
You don't have to know where it's going to lead. You don't have to know what you're best at, but just zoom in on those things that capture your attention.
Yes.
And just have enough faith to take that first step towards that, even if you don't know where that second step is going to be.
Yes.
And you live that. That's exactly what you did when you saw the lady with the hairstyle. You exercised that courage to ask her about it. One of my favorite stories in the Bible, it's when Moses has his moment with the burning bush. The first time, several times I heard that story, I heard it as there was a burning bush and the voice of God screamed out to Moses, telling him the purpose of his life. But the story says Moses saw that a bush was burning and it wasn't consumed, and he went to investigate it. He went to see why this bush was burning and not consumed. He followed that intrigue.
Right.
And when he followed that intrigue, it was then that he heard the voice speak, giving him instructions for his life. And what you're saying perfectly captures that message, that it's inquire into those things that capture your curiosity, that intrigue you. Yeah.
Yes.
I want to get back to the next step in your story. You raise the money, you have the van, you're able to go take the classes. What happens next?
I like to always tell this little part. So I'm at this garage sale all day. And so anyway, when we leave to go to Atlanta, I actually didn't put on a fresh change of clothes. I said, you know what? We're going to get to Atlanta. And when we check in the hotel, I'll get all freshened up and prettied up. I just want to get out of here. Let's just get on the road and just go. Because, And so that's what we did. I actually didn't comb my hair. I didn't brush my teeth. I didn't put on clean clothes. I was going to do all of that when we got to Atlanta. When we got to Atlanta, we had requested an early check-in, and the hotel says that they weren't able to grant us the early check-in. And I'm thinking, you're kidding, right? Like, I need to comb my hair. I need to change clothes. I need to do the things that I need to do. And the class was starting like in minutes. And I really just had enough time to get in the hotel and to do all of what I needed to do and get down to the class. The class was at the same hotel. And I realized that I was not going to have time to do any of that. And I'm looking at my clothes and I'm like, okay, this is a food stain on here and my hair doesn't look good. And what am I going to do? But I need to get in class. So I go in, I walk in and I, clear my throat and try to straighten out my clothes. And I get up to the table and I say, hi, I'm Melony Armstrong here for the braiding class. But you know what? I don't normally look like this. And I went into this, just a lot of excuses of why my clothes was wrinkled and why I looked the way I looked. And I remember the instructor, she was looking down and she looked up at me and she didn't say anything. And she waited until I was finished. And she said, you know what? If you hadn't have told me any of that, I wouldn't have known any of that. And I'm telling you, that was a aha moment for me. That was a teaching moment for me. And I thought to myself, it was my perception of myself. She didn't see any of that. And I took that and I learned a lot from that. I've never forgotten that.
So many moments like that, right? Where we hold ourselves back. I mean, if I were in that situation, I might have skipped the class, I would have been so embarrassed. I mean, but so many situations we hold ourselves back because of insecurity. And it's like, people aren't even thinking about you in that way.
They're not.
Yeah, that's amazing. So how long was this process for you?
So the class was 2 days. One of the prerequisites, though, was that you had to be an experienced braider already, which I was not. I did not know how to braid at all. But on my phone interview for this class, the question was, do you know how to braid? That's it. That's all they asked me. And I was thinking, okay, I don't lie. But I had a flashback to my baby doll days and when I braided their hair. And so I said, yes, I know how to braid. Yeah, I know how to braid. And I knew they were meaning more than that. But that was how badly I wanted to get into this class. So I kind of fudged my way into the class.
Now, when you got there, did you have any moment where that caught up with you or they found out?
Well, it ended up coming out, but it came out pretty much in a good way. So I'm there, and there's other girls in the class. Some of them actually had braiding salons in other states. And I'm thinking, what are you doing here? What have you done? And so about the second day, we were it was probably about 4 girls. We were all at a table because we were sectioned off in groups, and we were practicing a technique that we had just been introduced. And one of the young ladies just wasn't getting it. And all of a sudden, she just burst out into tears. And she just has a meltdown. And she says, I'm not getting it. I've come all of this way. I paid all of this money. I'm just not getting it. I'm just not catching on. And I'm just looking. And then one of the other young ladies turns to me and she says, you're so good. How long have you been braiding? And I was thinking, I haven't. And I took that as the moment to just share that this is the first for me. And when they learned that, they were so shocked. They were like, you're kidding. You mean you paid all of this money to come and you didn't even know how to braid? And you risked coming and not even learning? And I was thinking it wasn't a risk to me, because if I got here, when I left here, I was gonna know something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And way to take ownership of that experience too, right? I mean, I think for you, it would have been so easy to walk in there and say, man, this is going to be a waste of my time.
Yeah.
They can't teach me anything. But you said, I am going to take responsibility for getting something valuable for me
Yes.
out of their minds or
Yes.
out of this experience. And you were able to do that.
Yes.
Now, at this time, did you already have clients?
No, I had potential clients.
Okay.
I had the clients that helped to fund me getting to Atlanta to take the class. And I said, I promise when I get back, I'll braid your hair.
And they cashed in on that promise.
Right.
So you go back, they cash in on the promise. Walk me through the journey of you actually building your clientele.
When I got back from taking the class, it took about another 6 months for me to practice until I felt comfortable enough to actually work on someone live. And after about 6 months, I began to solicit business in stores, Walmarts, anywhere that I saw someone that had a pretty enough face or features that I thought a particular hairstyle would look just great on them. And I would go up to them and I'd say, introduce myself, and tell them what I did. And what I did was, I'm a professional hair braider. And you know what? I'm looking for models just like you for a particular hairstyle. And I think you would be great. And I would exchange information. And that's how I would book appointments. So initially, I worked for free. I didn't charge. It was just for the experience.
You know, one thing I thought was really interesting in one of your interviews, you talked about how early on there were a lot of Black people that had a hard time being sold on natural hair care.
Yes.
Because, A, it's natural, right? It's just a cultural mainstay. Why do I need to pay somebody to do it? How did you overcome that hurdle?
Well, really, the way that I overcame it is I always sold myself as a professional hair braider. I do professional hair techniques that won't take your edges out,
Yeah.
that is healthy for your hair instead of unhealthy. I do styles and techniques that the average person in my area is not doing. And I guess because of the enthusiasm that I showed, I don't know, it just wasn't hard to really sell them.
Yeah. You're a trailblazer and a pioneer. Naturally speaking, your salon was the first professional hair braiding salon
Yes.
in Mississippi, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And at that time, when you first started, you were paving the way. And now that the number of people, as a result of the work you've done in occupational licensing, the fight that you have done for so many others, there are thousands of people.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
What was the hardest part about getting through that battle?
The hardest part about getting through that battle was it was an unknown territory for me, first of all. I started off just wanting to braid and have a braiding salon. And, you know, now I'm a lobbyist. What happened? How did I go from being a hair braider or wanting to be a hair braider to now having to lobby to legally be able to do this? Again, that word just didn't make sense to me. And so that was unknown territory. I wasn't strong. My strength was, I didn't have a strong political background. This was unfamiliar to me. I felt a lot of times intimidated being at the Capitol, speaking with legislatures who had no knowledge of the topic, and trying to convey what it was that I was doing in sometimes 30 seconds or less. Because many times they would say, you have 30 seconds to tell me. And I'm like, la, 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 yeah. So that was very intimidating. And, but even in that, I just, I would go home and I would regroup and I would kind of think about it. I would refuel, and then I would just find myself going back again the next week.
And at this time, you're essentially fighting for yourself. Did you have any idea that there would be thousands of other people that would come after you and do this thing you do because of those efforts?
Never,
Yeah.
ever,
Yeah.
ever.
It's amazing because your ability to face your fears, your willingness to step into a realm that you were unfamiliar with and felt intimidated by has paved the way for so many other people to follow their dream.
Wow.
And in the same way that that hair braider had an impact on you, you've done something. You've been
Wow.
faithful to your dream in a way that's made a lot of people say, hey, I know what I want to do with my life now.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I want to know if you have any advice to people who maybe feel intimidated by life, feel disadvantaged, feel like they don't have a lot of hope, and like their faith has never been at the 10, but they know what you mean when you say your faith was knocked down to a 3. What would you say to people who need a little encouragement?
I would say to that person that, first of all, it's not going to be easy, okay? There is a saying that you have to fail often to succeed only once. You have to approach it knowing that. And also, I would say to that person, there's also a saying that I live by, is to persist until you succeed. Persistence is a principle, and it will always work for you if you don't give up. And so not to give up is what I would say. If you don't give up, you're going to make it. It's only when you give up that you're not going to make it. A baby has to fall, however many times in their process in learning how to walk. It's the same with us. Don't be scared. You're going to make it. You're going to fall. You're going to fail. You're going to run into some roadblocks. But guess what? At the end, you're going to be there. You're going to make it.
Spoken by somebody who's walked the walk as brilliantly as anyone who's done it. Melony, I appreciate you taking the time to share your story.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. To learn more about today's guest, please visit her website at naturallyspeakingsalons.com. Follow her on Facebook at Naturally Speaking Salons, or check her out on Instagram at I am Melony Armstrong and at Naturally Speaking. Also, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram, and subscribe to the podcast on Google Play, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can find all this information and more at our website, fee.org/Rev1. Thanks for tuning in.